French Reconquest of Gascony, 1449 to 1453, the final phase of the Hundred Years' War. The French Reconquest of Gascony, between 1449 and 1453, marked the final phase of the Hundred Years' War, ending English control over the last significant territory they held in southwestern France. The Reconquest was a decisive chapter in the war, following the loss of Normandy and other French regions in the previous decades, and it sealed the fate of English ambitions in France. Background: English hold on Gascony. Gascony, a large region in the southwest of France, had been under English control since the early years of the Hundred Years' War. The region, with its rich vineyards and strategic location on the Bay of Biscay, was highly valuable to the English. By the mid-1440s, Gascony was one of the last remaining English strongholds in France, and the English were determined to maintain control, despite their weakening position. However, by the time the 1440s arrived, Charles VII, King of France, had successfully regained much of his kingdom, including Normandy and Paris. The French king had also implemented significant military reforms, professionalizing his army and making use of cannon and artillery to challenge English fortifications. The French resurgence, combined with internal English instability, made the reconquest of Gascony inevitable. The French offensive, 1449 to 1451. The French reconquest of Gascony began in earnest in 1449, with Charles VII's forces launching a series of military campaigns to retake the region. 1. Initial successes. In 1449, the French army, led by Jean de Dunois and Jean Bureau, began an offensive against the English garrisons in Gascony. The French quickly retook key towns such as Bordeaux and Bayonne, important cities that had long been under English rule. The English, caught off guard by the speed of the French advance, were unable to mount an effective defense. 2. The Battle of Castillon, 1453. The decisive moment in the Reconquest came at the Battle of Castillon on July 17, 1453. The French, under Jean Bureau, defeated an English force led by John Talbot, 1st Earl of Shrewsbury. The French artillery played a crucial role in this victory, bombarding the English positions and forcing their retreat. The English were decisively defeated, and Talbot was killed in the battle, marking the end of organized English resistance in Gascony. The fall of Bordeaux and the end of English rule. Following the victory at Castillon, the French pressed their advantage, and Bordeaux, the last major English-held city in Gascony, surrendered to the French in October 1453. With the fall of Bordeaux, the French had completed the reconquest of Gascony, and English control in France was effectively extinguished. Consequences of the Reconquest. 1. End of English possessions in France. The French Reconquest of Gascony marked the final loss of English territory in France. With the fall of Gascony, the English were left with only the port city of Calais, which they held until 1558. The loss of Gascony dealt a fatal blow to the English position in France, marking the effective end of the Hundred Years' War. 2. French consolidation. The Reconquest of Gascony was the culmination of Charles VII's efforts to restore French authority over his kingdom. The French monarchy was now stronger than ever, having defeated the English and reconciled internal divisions. The Reconquest also further cemented Charles VII's legitimacy as the rightful ruler of France. 3. Decline of English power. The loss of Gascony, along with the earlier defeats at Formigny and Castillon, left England in a weakened state. The Hundred Years' War had drained the English treasury and military resources, and the loss of Gascony shattered the English desire to continue the conflict. This defeat played a role in the internal strife that would later erupt into the War of the Roses, as the Lancastrian and Yorkist factions fought for control of the English throne. Conclusion. The French Reconquest of Gascony between 1449 and 1453 was the final blow to English ambitions in France, marking the end of the Hundred Years' War. With the French successfully retaking the region, English power in France was extinguished, and Charles VII emerged as the undisputed ruler of a unified France. The Reconquest, culminating in the Battle of Castillon and the fall of Bordeaux, brought an end to one of the most significant conflicts of the medieval period and solidified France's territorial integrity.